right, now when it comes to flying in the hobby, if you guys are new, I have 2 rules. These are Alex's rules to success. And number 1 is make sure you fly with your buddies.
Yes.
So I got Tweedledee and Tweedledum here. And the second rule is to make sure a camera's rolling. Now, not only do we have the camera crew out here working hard today, but we also got these guys who are not only gonna be flying, but they're also flying cameras. So it's like the best of both worlds. And the idea behind that is because when something spectacular happens, which it normally does in this hobby, you got footage of it so you can share all your friends. Check it out on Flight Test Fan. So without further ado, today we have the RocHobby Waco. Now this guy comes in at $179 for a plug and play model, and what that means for people who are new is it comes with everything you need other than a receiver, a transmitter, and your battery charger, which is pretty cool. Of course, the wind is coming right over the building, so we got all the fresh rotor coming in hot. So we're gonna see what happens. Hopefully this Waco has a better climb out than your actual full-scale Waco. And this plane is gorgeous. I'm gonna do my best to keep it this way. All right, the wind shifted. I'm gonna go for it. Oh boy, that was sketchy. Get above that rotor, buddy. Okay, I'm gonna bring her around. All right, she's up. As soon as I got out of that dirty air, she definitely started behaving a lot better. It was a little sketchy there for a second. Right off the bat, you notice it's very soft, docile controls. This isn't like your extra or anything like that. And it also feels like pretty light in the air.
Dang.
Hey, buddy, let's be nice here,
Sorry
okay?
about that, buddy.
Hey, man, if the plane doesn't come back looking as nice as it was, at least it wasn't my fault.
Dang.
They actually still make these planes. They're beautiful Waco, the YMF model specifically, because Waco back in the day made all kinds of models. And they remade these YMFs, and they're actually kind of like luxury sport planes today. And you can get them. They're very, very nice, very luxurious, very sporty, and very expensive, as you could probably guess. And traditionally, the Waco company actually started back in the 1920s, and they went all the way through World War II, and they actually ceased production of the original Wacos back in like late 40s, 47, 48, I think. And that was actually kind of the fate of a lot of general aviation aircraft manufacturers back in the day. During the war, not many people were buying airplanes. And though Waco did make quite a few different military airplanes, including actually a lot of gliders. They did a lot of the gliders that actually served during Normandy, a little fun fact. Even despite doing that, they still had to shut doors after the war. And it wasn't until the 1980s when they decided to kind of revitalize the brand. And I don't know the exact details of who actually did that, if it was the same company.
That's my fault.
We have a mayday.
That was my bad.
We have a mayday. I'm bringing her in hot.
I'm so sorry about that.
I got it down! Dang, speaking of World War II,
I'm
you freaking
sorry
took
about
me
that.
out. So let's go check out the damage.
All right.
See how the RocHobby holds up.
Dang.
Ian, how do you feel about yourself?
Disappointed.
Dude, the funny thing is when you hit it, it started shaking like it had a real radial engine on there. It was like, yep. This is just your classic prop strike. Literally broke right in half here. We have a little bit of wing damage. That must be from that's from Tweedledee. Yeah. This is from Tweedledum right here. Now I'm gonna require you guys to sign your mark on each one of these. Overall, the plane looks fine. So this is like some cosmetic stuff. It would still fly with this, but that's repairable with a little bit of touch-up paint. When you have a broken prop like that, and I should have probably cut the throttle, I kept it running. Now, one of the things that you want to check after you have an incident like this is check all of the airframe, because even though it probably didn't look as intense as it actually was, that vibration is just kind of like a vicious vibration, and it will actually knock stuff loose. And actually, if you see here, look at this, it looks like the motor is loose. So that's the type of things that you want to check for after you have an incident like this. Without further ado, we're going to take this back in the shop, give it a full inspection, replace the prop, and then we're going to get it back up in the air. Let's do it. Alrighty, now to my surprise, the only major damage that we had on this guy was the motor just shook loose because of the broken prop was causing so much vicious vibration that it just shook the hardware completely loose. The rest of the damage was all cosmetic. So the cowling had a couple of nicks on it from the quads, even a hole going all the way through at one point. I was able to patch that up with a little bit of spackling actually that we'd use for typical home improvement. And then my buddy Chad, he actually fixed the wing using a technique that he he tried where he used actually a little bits of plastic. He said that you could probably use that, just like shavings or sawdust even. He filled the gap with sawdust and then topped it off with CA glue. Once we were able to match the paint by mixing some different yellows together, the results were actually pretty good. Now, I will say with EPO foam, you're never gonna get it back to a brand new look. But overall, it did do a good job to patch it up, and from a distance on camera, when you're flying it, it looks just as good as new. Now, the only other damage was the wing hardware, and actually some of it was actually missing after the impact. I'm assuming it was from one of the quads. And one of the things that Bob said, Bob actually put this plane together, and he said that one thing to note is that the wing hardware is not the highest quality, so when you're putting it together, you gotta be very careful not to over tighten it. Anyways, enough talking, let's get back outside and fly it. All right, so Matt's getting his quad ready. We got one quad this time instead of two. Hopefully we'll lesser the chance of any kind of mid-air collision, because I actually like this plane. I want to keep it around. So we got about the same amount of wind. It is coming in at a little bit more favorable of a direction. So let's just pop her up in the air here, see what happens. Oh yeah, much more uneventful than last time with the favorable wind. All right, so last time I was yabbering on about the history of Waco when I did the real planes that this is actually based off of. I didn't even actually talk about this RC plane. So starting off, this plane has about a 40-inch wingspan, which honestly is a pretty good size. Now, typically with biplanes, they just feel like a more substantial airplane because they have the tall wing on top. So it feels like a much bigger plane than a 40-inch wingspan plane, but you're gonna be able to fit it in the back of your car, no problem, because it has that 40-inch wingspan, and it's only about 30 inches long too. So it's a backseat plane, which is pretty cool. And speaking of backseat planes, it also is running off of they recommend an 1800 milliamp battery. I'm running it off of a 2200, which is kind of like our staple, which is great because that is like one of the most standard batteries that you can fly with, and a lot of our flight test planes, the swappable series, will run off that same battery. So in my opinion, like for these types of foamy planes, that's all I want, is just something with a simple, a simple plane, simple battery requirements. I don't need any kind of 4S, 6S nonsense. I just want to go to the park and have some fun, and this plane does it. Now I will say, speaking of batteries, since this is lighter, it does seem like this is meant to be set up to be a little bit of a lighter model compared to some of the other biplanes we've done in the past, like the Stearman from E-Flight. Another great plane, but that one is running off of like a 3000 milliamp 3-cell. This is running off of about 1800. And you can definitely feel it. This one has a lot lighter wing loading, and it just flies a little bit more scale, and it doesn't carry its speed as much as the Stearman. All right, put it into the wind. I'm gonna put it into a stall here. Drop the wingtip a little bit, but that's full up right there into the wind. I'm using the rudder to kind of counteract it. It's pretty predictable, as I'm sure the real Waco is as well. Overall, it's pretty good. Now, the aileron control surfaces are pretty soft. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a beginner plane, but it's not gonna be like, you're not gonna be doing crazy snap rolls. There's a big lazy roll right there. I almost didn't have enough altitude for that one. And when you see these planes fly, they're known for doing big, lazy, slow rolls, and that's exactly what this model does. It's probably a little bit too windy than what I would recommend for this plane today. But that being said, without any kind of stabilization or anything, it's doing pretty well. Let's try another roll here. I mean, it looks like a real plane when it does those rolls. One of the things I noticed too is that it has a pretty strong wing, a nice wing spar in it, but I wouldn't say it's as rigid. It has a little bit of flex to it, and I think that is because it's meant to be a little bit of a lighter plane. So I wouldn't recommend putting larger batteries in here. Let's try setting her up for an approach here, see what happens. Pretty draggy, so it does slow down pretty good. We got the weird wind. Nicely done, Austin. Austin with the hopscotch right over the plane. I don't know if anybody saw that.
Win.
That was awesome. So it came in a little crazy because the wind's coming over the building again, and it got that rotor, but Austin, quick on his feet. Luckily we didn't have an incident. But overall, I think it's pretty good. So hopefully this episode helped you learn from my experiences. Don't fly with two crazy quad pilots at the same time. You never know what you're gonna get. At least don't do it with planes that you love. And I actually do love this plane. Comes in at $179 price point, which you can't beat. It's a beautifully painted plane. Hopefully the tips that we talked about help you guys with your EPO models if you need to repair them. Let us know down in the comments if you guys have any of your tips that you like to do on your EPO models. And we'll see you guys next time. Matt, thanks, buddy.
No problem.